In Higurashi, few characters embody the collision of innocence and horror like Rena Ryuuguu, a girl who smiles as her mind unravels. In this video, we explore how trauma and paranoia twist her love into violence. Rena appears, at first glance, to be the very image of a classic moe heroine. She's kind, a bit clumsy, and obsessed with adorable things, especially anything she can take home from the junkyard. But this light-hearted exterior masks a darker truth. She was born and raised in Hinamizawa until she and her parents relocated to Ibaraki to advance their careers as fashion designers. Her mother was the breadwinner while her father was more focused on the house chores and in raising Rena, which only deepened her attachment to him. Rena's psychological unraveling began long before Hinamizawa, rooted in a betrayal that fractured her family and her trust in love itself. When her mother had an affair and became pregnant with another man's child, Rena wasn't just abandoned, she was replaced. Her mother chose a new family, leaving Rena behind with a father who collapsed under grief. He withdrew into depression, leaving Rena to navigate the wreckage alone. Being abandoned twice broke how Rena understood love and justice. If love can be stolen, then those who betray it must pay. Her obsession with taking things home isn't just about collecting trinkets, it's a desperate attempt to reclaim control, to fix what was broken in Ibaraki by preserving whatever fragments of happiness she can grasp. But what pushed Rena over the edge? The bullying she suffered in Ibaraki served only to push Rena further until one day she marched into class with a baseball bat, smashed every window in a frenzy, and swung at her tormentors with a guttural scream. For this she was hospitalized and later diagnosed with dysautonomia, a condition that affected her physical health but also reflected the stress she endured. Desperate to understand why everything fell apart, Rena's unraveling mind came up with a solution. In her fractured logic, every tragedy had a divine cause and effect. Her parents' abandonment, the bullying in Ibaraki, even her own violent outburst, all of it was punishment. They had broken Hinamizawa's oldest rule. They left, and Oyashiro-sama, the village's vengeful guardian, had marked them for it. The curse wasn't just real to her, it was personal. Her mother's affair, a consequence of turning their backs on tradition. Her father's collapse, the weight of the gods' displeasure. The voices in her head whispered it plainly. This suffering was no accident. It was retribution. By the time she returned to Hinamizawa, Rena wasn't just afraid of the curse, she believed she was living it. That is why she returned to the town. Hinamizawa offered a fresh start, but trauma doesn't fade, it festers. And when the syndrome's paranoia took hold, it didn't create her fears, it weaponized the ones she'd carried all along. The syndrome doesn't invent her paranoia, it amplifies it, like pouring gasoline on the fire of her trauma. Her distrust of Keiichi isn't just delusion, it's the echo of every adult who failed her. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Now let's continue. Rena Ryuuguu's greatest strength, and her deepest curse, is her razor-sharp perception. Years of betrayal and abandonment honed her instincts into weapons. She could spot a forced smile, detect a hesitation in someone's voice, or sense the slightest shift in body language. This wasn't intuition, it was survival. When Keiichi nervously laughed off her questions in Onikakushi-hen, she knew he was hiding something. But this skill came at a cost. Her trauma rewired her to expect deception, to see threats where there might only be awkwardness or coincidence. Every secret became a potential betrayal, every white lie a prelude to abandonment. Even kindness felt suspect. If people could pretend to love her before leaving, how could she ever trust again? Her paranoia wasn't just the Hinamizawa Syndrome's influence, it was the logical endpoint of a girl who had learned, through brutal experience, that the people closest to her were always the ones who hurt her the most. Rena's mind is a battleground. Her trauma from the divorce left her hypersensitive to threats, both real and imagined. Her sense of justice became warped. Anyone who causes pain or dishonor must be punished. This moral rigidity mixes with the supernatural paranoia that infects Hinamizawa. When she begins to suspect others of hiding dark secrets, her brain, already wired to expect betrayal, spirals out of control. She becomes the embodiment of what the show does best, blurring the line between paranoia and reality. Her descent is not a sudden snap, but a slow erosion of trust, built from very real fears. Rena's psychological collapse mirrors real-world dissociative responses to prolonged trauma, not as a clinical diagnosis, but as a hauntingly familiar survival mechanism. Her whiplash between cheerful innocence and violent paranoia mirrors the fractured self-preservation of PTSD, where the mind compartmentalizes unbearable pain, dissociating during the school attack, only to wake up afterward with fragmented memories. The Hinamizawa Syndrome exaggerates these cracks, but the roots are human. Her hypervigilance mirrors abuse survivors who scan every face for threats, and her obsessive fixing of objects echoes compulsive attempts to control a world that betrayed her. Even her delusions, Oyashiro-sama's curse, government conspiracies, reflect trauma's cruel trick. The brain would rather invent monsters than accept that loved ones were the real danger all along. This paranoia culminates in Tsumihoroboshi-hen, where Rena's axe isn't just a weapon, it's a cry for help. Understanding the Hinamizawa Syndrome is key to understanding Rena's terrifying breakdown. One of the key drivers behind Rena's collapse is the Hinamizawa Syndrome, a parasitic infection that worsens under stress and induces hallucinations, anxiety, and homicidal tendencies. Rena is infected. As her fear grows, so does the syndrome's grip. She starts to believe her friends and teachers are conspiring against her. She hears whispers, sees things that aren't there. When she finds evidence of a government cover-up at the school, it validates her psychosis. In her mind, she's the only sane one left in a world gone mad. But here's the tragic part. Rena's actions are rooted in a desire to protect. She wants to save Hinamizawa from the outside world, just like she couldn't save her family from falling apart. In the Tsumihoroboshi-hen arc, we see Rena at her psychological breaking point. Convinced that Hinamizawa is under threat from parasitic agents and corrupt adults, she takes an axe and storms the school, holding her friends hostage. Her logic is flawless in her mind. The world has betrayed her once, she won't let it happen again. But what makes this arc powerful is not just the horror, it's the humanity. Rena cries. She hesitates. She begs her friends to understand. Rena holds the axe like a child clutching a stuffed animal, a weapon she wields with the desperation of someone still begging to be proven wrong. She isn't a monster. She's a broken child trying to make sense of betrayal and fear, while a parasite whispers lies in her ears. Her breakdown is not the loss of reason, it's reason turned against her by trauma and illness. And yet, Rena is not beyond saving. In a reversal of an earlier arc, Keiichi chooses empathy over violence. He listens. He trusts her. He reaches out, not to stop her, but to understand her. This is what breaks the loop of violence. Not confrontation, but connection. Keiichi's compassion reminds Rena of who she really is. The fog of paranoia lifts, and in that moment, we see the real Rena, a girl who just wants to protect the people she loves. Not with an axe, but with her heart. Higurashi thrives on duality, and Rena is its most haunting symbol. She represents the thin line between innocence and insanity. Her love for cute things is genuine, but also obsessive. Her care for friends is real, but easily corrupted by fear. Her trauma doesn't make her evil, it makes her human. But to fully grasp Rena's tragedy, we must see her reflection in Higurashi's other broken girl, Shion Sanazaki. Both are victims of the curse, yet their collapses diverge like shadow and flame. Where Rena's madness festers inward, fusing paranoia with a desperate need to fix what's broken, Shion's explodes outward in a wildfire of vengeance. Rena sees betrayal everywhere but hesitates, her grip on the cleaver shaking as she begs for someone to prove her wrong. Shion becomes betrayal, wielding knives and lies with chilling precision, convinced brutality is justice. Both are haunted by abandonment, Rena by her parents, Shion by Satoshi, but while Rena clings to the hope of being saved, Keiichi's empathy in Tsumihoroboshi-hen literally stops her mid-swing. Shion rejects salvation entirely, carving her pain into others until nothing remains. Their tragedies mirror each other. Rena is a girl who couldn't stop loving the world that hurt her, and Shion is the woman who decided to hate it back. The show forces us to question, when someone snaps, is it madness, or is it pain no one listened to? Rena's story is a warning, not just about psychological horror, but about what happens when we ignore the suffering of those who smile the brightest. Rena Ryuuguu is not a villain. She's not a monster. She is the broken mirror of a world that hides trauma beneath tradition, fear behind smiles, and madness behind civility. Her collapse is terrifying because it is real, and her recovery is powerful because it reminds us that no one is beyond saving. So the next time you see Rena's sweet smile, remember, behind every howl lies a scream no one heard in time. Rena's story reminds us that madness is often just pain, left to fester too long. Did Rena's story change how you see madness in anime? Tell me your thoughts below. Whose breakdown in Higurashi hit you hardest? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into horror's most tragic minds.